Well, thank you, you three, for joining us today. This is kind of something a lot of my advisors have been asking for, kind of a way to talk with past editors, but also give you editors time to chat. Also, advisors just get feedback on how you can also manage your editor staff. Alex actually went step beyond what I expected, and she has a whole PowerPoint presentation for you guys
Yes.
on what it is to be an editor and a bunch of stuff. So I will let Alex kind of take it over. And Alex, if you don't mind, just reintroduce who you are, what you've been doing since graduating from Rancho, and then go from there.
This is why she's awesome. Yay.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Let me share my screen. Okay, I'm going to talk about everything you need to know about being a yearbook editor. First, I'll talk a little bit about myself. So, I'm Alexandra. I'm from Rancho Cucamonga, California, which is about an hour east of LA. Some things I did in high school were yearbook, mock trial, and key club. I was actually first interested in yearbooks in kindergarten when I begged my mom to buy me the kindergarten yearbook, which everyone thought was really weird because what is a kindergartner going to do with the yearbook? But I like flipped through it so much that now it's just being held together by tape and I still have it. And then I was able to join the yearbook staff in 8th grade, and I continued all throughout high school. So some of the editor positions I had were clubs editor, copy editor, and editor-in-chief, which I will talk more about later. Now I study media at UC San Diego. Carlos is also in San Diego now, which is really cool. And some things I do there are I edit copy for the school newspaper, and I recently started a job helping broadcast the school sports games for ESPN Plus. So it's really cool because everything is done live, and I get to operate cameras and be behind the scenes in the control room, and it's been a lot of fun.
Nice.
Here are some pictures that I took in high school. The water sports were my favorite to photograph, but I did a little bit of everything. And these are some other photos I took. Photography is one of my hobbies in general. The two on the right are from this past year in San Diego. And some other hobbies I have are playing piano, going ice skating, bird watching.
Yes, Alex, that surf photo, wasn't that the one you just recently published in the newspaper?
No, it was actually a different one.
Okay.
But yeah, I had a photo of a surfer on the cover of the school newspaper, which was really cool. Yeah,
Nice.
thank you. So some things I will be going over are the responsibilities of the different editor positions, advice for future editors, challenges that you might face, and solutions, and then just some closing notes. There'll be time for Q&A after if you guys have any more questions, or you could just let me know in the chat or unmute if you have anything before then. So the people who are here, could you put in the chat like what your role in your book is? I'm just curious, like are you a staff or a certain kind of editor? Just so I know who's here. And anyways, so what's so special about being an editor? So editors have much more responsibility and a lot more to do, but with that comes creative freedom. So your ideas hold a lot more weight and you have more say in what does or doesn't go in the book, which is really cool. Another thing is you have a more direct connection to staff and editors, so the staff are more comfortable reaching out to you, which makes it much easier to teach them and work alongside them than if you were just one of their peers. Let me look in the chat here. Advisor and managing editor. Cool. So first I'm going to start with copy. Copy editors teach the staff to write copy, revise copy, monitor their progress, and stay organized. So when revising copy, don't do it for them. You want to prioritize the students' voices, so don't rewrite their work, just give suggestions on how they can improve their work. Sitting down with them and talking about it one-on-one really helps. Photo is next. As you know, photos are one of the first things people see when they open the book. You teach the staff to take photos, you assign them to photo events, organize folders, and select and edit the best photos. So my school uses Dropbox to organize our photos. I'm a big fan of Dropbox. I use it for personal use also. And I have photo and copy listed first because I think those are the first things that should be worked on a spread. You can't design a spread without the photos and copy. So it's important that copy and photo comes first and you get it done as soon as possible. Next is design. Design editors design spread layouts. You put the edited copy, captions, and photos onto the spreads, and you get back to the copy and photo editors if any content is missing. So you're the last in line. If you're designing the spread and there's an empty spot that you want to fill with something, it's up to you to get back to the staff to get that done. And you keep up consistency, which I will talk more about later. So here's one of the spreads I designed. This is a student life template. This was for the Welcome Back week where we had a parade to welcome all the students back from summer. We had these gradient poles on the side and big bold headlines. Here's another spread I designed. This was for senior sunrise. You have a little sun at the bottom, and then the gradient continues from the last spread and another pole. So some other editor positions that we had at my school were the clubs editor, sports editor, and senior ads editor. I know other schools have different names for senior ads, but they're the tribute pages that the parents pay for to put a message about their kid in the back of the book. This is a great opportunity for staff to become more involved. These you can even assign to students who are interested during the year if they want to learn more. It's not something that has to be decided really early on like the other editor positions. And basically they fill in templates that are already made by the design editors. And by putting in the photos, the text, you can change the colors, and it gives you an introduction to design without having to free design a whole template. You organize photo shoots. So when I was a clubs editor, my high school had like 60 plus clubs, and so we had to schedule times for all of them to have their group photos taken out in the bleachers. And this really lessens the workload of the other editors. So if you have someone designated for, when I say sports, I don't mean like the actual sports page, the one with their group photos of the team. So if someone is working on that, then it gives the other editors more time to work on making better designs instead of having to fill out all of the clubs and sports. The index, we didn't have an editor position for that, but it's definitely something that you could assign to a student who's interested, because that also takes a lot of time filtering through and making sure there's no mistakes and that everything is indexed properly.
Alex, real quick, can you speak on clubs a little more? Because I feel like that's the one area a lot of staff struggle with on, like, one, how to organize it better, and then two, how to capture everyone's name. Because I know you guys index everyone's name on their club photos. So if you could
Yes.
a little bit on that, that'd be great.
Yes. So before we even begin, we start out by making a list of all the clubs. The school has, like, in order to be a registered club, the school office has a list of them, and so we get that list from them, and we decide how many clubs we want on each page. So we kind of divide it up in alphabetical order and how we want them to be featured in the book. And then once we're ready to start contacting the president of each club, either through social media or around on campus, we set up their group photos in the bleachers. So when we take their group photos, it's important you get the names before you take the picture, because if you take the picture, they're going to leave and then you won't be able to get their names, and it makes it really difficult. So you have to get their names before the picture, even if they're really impatient and they want you to take their picture already. So what we do, nowadays we pass a phone and like the notes app, and then you go make sure it's the same direction all the way up, and you label which row is which. So you say first row left to right, and you pass it on the left side, and then you just have to watch the phone and make sure it's following the order that you wanted it to go in. And this is really important. There was one year where they didn't get all the names for one of the really big clubs with over 100 people in it, and we just couldn't get everyone's names. The people in the very back, their faces were so small, it was hard to identify them. So if something like that does happen and you can't get all the names, what we did was we just found a roster of everyone's name and then just copy pasted that onto the spread instead of doing it in order like we would have liked to. But get the names before you take the picture, and then once you take the picture, they can go. And then we just make sure we schedule that out nicely so that I think the intervals were maybe like 10-15 minutes for each club. And then we have like 4 or 5 photographers out at a time. doing that. So it's like a whole week or two, and then we have a separate week for makeup photos. And then another thing besides the photos is we have a one sentence description of what each club does, kind of like a subline. And so you can just contact them and have them email that to you. And so the club's editor's job is to set up those photo shoots, get all the names and put them on the spread, and get that subline description of the club.
Awesome. And then did you assign a time for them, or did you have the clubs pick a time to when to come and take their photo?
I think we had them pick a time, but we gave them choices. I'm going to show later. I had the spreadsheet that I think we used that year. So I'll show you that later.
Perfect.
Yeah. Sports is the same thing as clubs, except they have their pictures professionally taken, which makes our job a lot easier. But then you do have to go around asking for names. Usually the coach knows everyone's name, so it's not as hard as clubs. But it's the same deal. Senior ads is more design heavy, so you would be more changing colors, and you might have to change the font size if a parent writes a really long message, but you don't really have to go out and talk to people for those types of things. It's more of a computer job. Same thing with index. Marketing, we have marketing editors occasionally. Their job is to make sure all copies ordered are sold, and you're also marketing the senior ads, which is how schools get a lot of their revenue. You can make posters around campus, set up fundraisers, run the social media accounts, but you're not only marketing the book, but the class. So it's also your job to help recruit people to join your book, and you're the public image basically of the class. So you want to be a role model for the rest of the school because your actions reflect on the rest of the yearbook class. This goes for all editors. There was one year where during distribution, we have a lot of students at our school, so distribution can get really chaotic with everyone lining up in the hallways. We had a megaphone that we borrowed from security officers to help organize the lines better. There was a student who took the megaphone home with him, one of the yearbook students, after he was walking home from school. And so he had to walk back to school to return the megaphone. And then the security guards got upset with us and wouldn't lend us the megaphone anymore because they were scared we were going to steal it or do something to it. And so now, because of that one student, the yearbook class isn't allowed to borrow the megaphone anymore. So don't be that person. We miss our megaphone. Be a role model for the rest of the class. Yes. And lastly, my favorite, editor-in-chief and assistant editor-in-chief. Our school had one of each. Your role is basically to oversee that everything goes smoothly and delegate tasks to the staff and editors to meet deadlines. Delegating is really important because there are times when I would be staying up really late at night doing work that I could have just divided up among my editors to help lighten my load. You're the last in line, so everything all the other editors and staff do goes to you at the end to make sure it's ready for submission, and it's your job to teach everyone everything you know to pass it down before you graduate. Usually the editor-in-chief is a senior, I guess not always. It is nice to have your assistant editor-in-chief be a grade younger than the editor-in-chief, so that way when the editor-in-chief graduates, the assistant is still there, who can maybe become editor-in-chief or at least be able to help everyone instead of both of them leaving at the same time. But it depends on who's interested in the positions in that year. But even though you're the ultimate teacher, it's still, you can still learn. So there's always something to be learned, even from, let's say, a new staff member who it's their first year. Maybe they see things a little differently than you. So always keep an open mind. Just because you might be the most experienced one in the room doesn't mean there isn't anything else to learn. So that's it on the different editor positions. Next, I'm going to go over some tips for future editors. For me, the number one most important thing is communication. Most problems are because of miscommunication, something that didn't get told to someone else. Some platforms that we use for communication are Remind, Trello. We had an Instagram group chat one year, iMessage, GroupMe. I really liked having Remind because that way you could reach the whole class at once, and it's more of a one-way thing, whereas like the Instagram group chat, it could get flooded with messages, and Remind keeps you a lot more organized. Remind also allows you to be able to communicate with your teacher advisor. So not all advisors are comfortable with giving you their personal contact information, and having Remind makes it easier to see messages without doing emails, because sometimes, our phone is always with us. It's easier to get messages. So I really liked using Remind. Trello is not as much for communicating with other people. It's more for keeping organized, like boards of what spread is which. I didn't really use Trello that much, but I know some schools do. Periodically check on your peers so nothing slips through the cracks. Make sure everyone has someone they can ask for help. This could be by assigning an editor to pair up with a staff member so that they have someone specific to help them out. And just be friendly so that they don't feel scared of you. I know there was one year where like the staff didn't want to go up to the editors because they were scared they were gonna get yelled at or something, and so they would just keep their problems to themselves. And I kept telling them, I was like, well, how is it gonna get done if you don't talk to the editors? I don't know. And lastly, quality over quantity. Make sure your staff knows what you expect from them and that everything is clear. And yeah, be a good communicator. Next, be consistent. This goes back to your theme, which I keep forgetting that most schools have already started school because I'm still on summer vacation. But if you've already selected your theme, you probably have design elements to go with it, and these should be kept consistently throughout the book. If you're spell checking one page, you should spell check all the pages. Don't put more effort into one page than another. You want to be consistent in how I was showing earlier. We kept like gradients throughout the book a lot, and it just looks a lot neater if you are consistent in what fonts and font sizes you are using.
So going off of that, your design elements and your theme. I know like as a class you guys come up with your theme, but the design elements and where they're placed, who's making that decision? Is that more the editor chief and design editor, or are you consulting the entire staff? How are you doing that?
It is more the editors. We have meetings over the summer before school even starts to discuss theme. But for things like that, if we have an editor meeting, it is open to the staff. So if there's a staff member who's super interested, they can show up and contribute to the conversation too. Designing is mostly just the design editors because they're the main ones who are designing the spreads. Yeah.
Awesome.
So I'll show you. Wait, let me stop the screen share. This was the book from my senior year when I was editor-in-chief. Our theme was resilient, and our school color was purple, but for the past like 4 years, we didn't have a purple book. They were all like gray and black and white, and so I wanted a purple book. And we have the gradients on the cover, and then the re is emphasized because we repeated words that start with re a lot throughout the book. So we were talking about like recovering from the pandemic, reconstructing the campus. I don't know off the top of my head, but we had a lot of re words, and so that's why we emphasized the re in resilient. Let me share my screen again. So this was our theme spread. So as you can see, it matches our cover really well. We have the gold text to match the foil on the cover, and then here's a couple of the rewords that we mentioned in our theme copy, and then we have the gradients to the purple again. So another important thing is critiques, which is something that a lot of editors and even like adults will struggle with, is accepting critiques and incorporating it into their work. But it's an important step for improving. You should accept critiques and give critiques to others, especially if you're an editor. Places to receive criticism is Yearbook Camp over the summer, Elite Weekend, which I think is coming up soon. Your yearbook, what?
It just happened this past weekend.
Oh, no way. That's so cool. Yeah. Elite Weekend was really helpful for me. A lot of my editors couldn't make it, but I learned a lot from Elite Weekend and getting to work with the people there. Your yearbook representative, which could be Carlos or Brooke. For me, it was Monica. And your parents too. Sometimes if you have a copy, you could show your parents and say, does this make sense? So basically anywhere where you think someone might be able to help you out. I would stray away from showing people that go to your school things to criticize, because you want to keep it a surprise for the end of the year and don't go around spoiling the book. But yeah, criticism, super important, and critiquing your editor's work as well.
So with critiquing, did you guys have some sort of like worksheet or something that you gave to like a staff member to critique another staff member's page? Like how would you do peer-to-peer critiques or editor critiques of your staff?
It wasn't like an official thing like that. It was more casual, just when we're proofreading a spread, then we would give them like a talk about what we like and don't like. We didn't have anything that formal. Yeah. Stay organized. Oh, keep backups. This is an important one. So if you're taking photos, upload them immediately, because for our school, we would have SD cards that you could borrow from the classroom in case you don't have your own. And then sometimes it would be like borrowed by a different student and now you don't know where it is. And if you lose the SD card, your photos aren't anywhere else until you upload them. So upload your photos immediately as soon as you get home from an event, even if you're not looking at them yet. Google is super reliable, so I'm not saying like duplicate all of your Google Docs. But if you have something important, keep a second copy of it, especially if you're designing. Our school switched to Walsworth Online Design, and sometimes if your internet's not really good, you would lose your work. Even if you save it, like if the internet's gone, then that save didn't always go through. So just save often. You can actually get a lot of work done in a short amount of time. So even if you saved recently, you should just keep saving. Yeah. There was this one time where I bought a hard drive off of Amazon, and then it turns out that it was like a shady brand, and then all my photos got stuck inside and I couldn't get them out even when I took it into the store. And so make sure you do your research. If I had bought like a normal brand from Costco, I would have been fine, but now I've lost hundreds of photos to that hard drive, which I still have, hoping I can get them out one day. So keep backups of everything. I didn't have those photos backed up, which was my fault. Label and be consistent with your organization. This is something I even use like in my ESPN job. Because we're broadcasting live, we have to work really quickly. And so if you don't label clips that you've saved, then it's going to be difficult to build like a highlights package at the end of a sports game. So label in your Dropbox folders, your Google Drive, and how you assign and keep track of content. Oh, we usually have 1 to 2 people per spread. And each spread gets its own document. So I'm going to show you now some of the things that we used to stay organized. It didn't start out like this. We built it throughout the year, so it might look a little crazy now that the year is over. But this is our all things organization spreadsheet, which worked really well for us. We have our ladder, page number, the spread, and then we have who did we assign to work on the spread. So these are the staffers who are in charge of getting the content for the spread. We have our design editors, our copy editors, and then it's color coded based on which deadline it is. So you can see like these are all deadline 1, then it switches. You can see like all the sports pages are together. And then I even put like the type of template so that the design editors know which template to apply, which is something that we start off in the beginning of the year by designing the templates. This is from a previous year where instead of going by page, we went by person, and then through each deadline, we put the spreads they're working on. Maybe you want to assign your photo events this way too. We didn't end up continuing this because people knew where they were going, I think. And then our clubs. So this is what you were asking about earlier, Carlos. This was like our sign up sheet. So we had these days and these times where we could take photos. And then I think I created a remind with all of the club presidents and then sent the link to this spreadsheet in that remind. And then through the remind, I could also get the descriptions of the clubs from them, and they could sign up for their photo. And then I color coded it by photographer. Oh, this is kind of old. Yeah, but this worked for us.
Awesome. Quick thing, going back to the previous Excel. So you mentioned that that's the one you use your senior year, but you use a different format a different year. Did you find this one to be better than the other format where you had name and then by deadline?
Yeah, I thought this one was much nicer. Yeah. Yeah, also because like for this one, let's say you're on the Olympic spread, Layla and Sophia now know that they're working together. If you put the names first, and you have like club rush spread, you don't even know who's on it with you. So it gets a little complicated.
Yeah. Nice.
Yes. I really liked color coding. So this was something that I was just doing personally. Like this was just for me. That's why it says like Alex copy folder. So I put like all of the spreads from this deadline, and then I was color coding it based on their progress. And then the rest of my editors ended up really liking this, and then they ended up using it too. And so then this is from a later deadline. Okay, I mean you can create your own rainbow, but so here the fire spread, it's in the SOS section, meaning that someone needs to do their work, which in this case was me. I don't know why this document did not get finished at the end of the year, but this way you could know like, are the editors ready to work on it? Are the staff done? So like if the staff finish it, they could change it to yellow, and then the editors know that that's something that they can work on that day. If the editors change it to green, then as the editor-in-chief, I know I can look over it to submit it. And then if it's blue, me and the teacher advisor would be ready to submit. And so you want everything to be blue like this one. So that was something that we really liked. And the editors after I graduated continued to use that, which I thought was really cool because that was something I had just made for personal use. Yes.
Nice.
And lastly, be a leader. Work hard and be an example, and you're not the main character. So just because you're the editor-in-chief and you have all the power doesn't mean it's all about you. You want to showcase the work of your staff and editors, not yourself. So don't be biased and like put all of your photos on the spread. You want to show the work of your other editors and your staff. If you design 0 spreads, but you taught your editors to create the most beautiful spreads through critique and fostering a great environment, then I think that's better than having designed all the spreads yourself. Go above and beyond and step in if anything needs to be done. So now we'll take a quick break. This is about halfway of what I have. If you can, could you type in the chat a worst case scenario that could affect your work on the book? Because next I'm going to be talking about challenges that you might face. So if you could come up with a worst case scenario, I'm curious to see if it's something that I talked about or I've forgotten. Yeah. I'll give a couple minutes.
Help and speak as well.
Dang, Brooke, that's for real though.
Mic drop.
That happened. None of us got a job here, so hopefully that does never happen. Hopefully we have to go through that in our lifetime again.
We're just having fun here. That's all. Alex, when does school start for you?
I moved back to San Diego this Saturday, and then our first day of classes is the Thursday after that. So it's really late this year. Because we're in the quarter system, so we're gonna get out later next summer.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, it is nice, but I am ready to move back in. And our first full week of school is not until the first week of October, which is crazy.
That is crazy. Wow.
Especially because my high school started extra early compared to most schools. It would be like August 5 or 6 would be our first day of classes. Yeah.
That seems super late than normal. I love the quarter system. But
Me too. I was just gonna say the quarter system was the best. Because if you hated one of your professors, you were just done. Like,
Yes.
I blinked.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I feel like being in the same class for a really long time too would get kind of boring after a while, even if you like the class. With semesters, the only downside is that you have to take midterms and finals way more often than in the semester system.
Yeah. You also get to take more classes, I feel. Like,
yes, yeah, I like that.
So
yeah. Okay, let's see what people came up with. COVID, definitely. COVID happened like right in the middle of my yearbook career, so it was like sophomore and junior year in high school. Half the staff didn't meet deadline, or their pages suck and we can't publish them. That's definitely one. Not being able to organize your photos, quotes, and interviews. Okay, so let me continue.
Real quick, Alex, because that brought up a good one, the photos one. Can you talk about your labeling system that you guys used and all that stuff?
Yeah, so I was trying to log back into my high school Dropbox and I can't because they needed to like approve me or something. I remember the password too and it needed me to verify it. So I don't exactly remember how we labeled the Dropbox. The way I do it personally is you have one main folder with that school year, and then inside that, oh, I do kind of remember. We had it like based on type of event. So we had like a sports folder, a clubs folder, a rally folder, and then within the sports folder you would put the type of sport, so you'd put like soccer, football, baseball, and then within that one you would have JV, freshman, varsity. So there's many layers to it, but it makes it way easier to find things later on. And then when you're actually ready to upload your photos, you put the date of the event and your name of the person who took the photos, because we used like a shared Dropbox for the whole class, so you have to make sure you put your name so you know who took the photos. But that worked out really good for us. For my personal use, I sort by month. So I just have a folder for each month and then put the folders in there. And then I could label like an event within that folder. But I think for yearbook for school, it was a little easier to do the type of event instead of when it happened, because it's not always in that order.
Okay.
So now we're moving on to problems you might have. The number one problem that I think a lot of people face is if a student isn't doing their work, which it could be really difficult because you need them to do their work when deadline is coming up. But the first thing that you do is find out why. So maybe if they're having family problems or their classes are being a lot, then you can assign them less spreads for now so that they can take on more later. So a lot of people, it's not that they don't want to do the work, it's just that they don't have the time at the moment. But that's also a problem because when they sign up for the class, they're signing up to get their work done on time. And so it depends on the reason for why they're not doing their work. There was one time where I had a student who would not always do their work on time and didn't do the best job, but I knew they really liked Halloween. He would dress up as like, you know, at Universal for horror nights when they have those people who jump out at you. He would do that with his friends and it was really cool. But so I assigned him the Halloween spread because we have a Halloween spread every year. And not only did he do a great job on the copy and the photos, but he finished it early. So I think it was just that he wasn't interested in the topic of his first spread. And so by giving him the Halloween spread, it showed that he can do his work and that he did a really great job too. And that's one of my favorite spreads from that year. Another thing, have backup plans in place. So let's say this is like a last resort. If the student can't do their work, you've got to give it to someone else to do it for them. If a student or editor has extra time or they're interested in it, then you can pass it to them, but only if they want to. Don't go stacking up all your extra spreads on your best editor. So it should be like a voluntary thing, and it could be something you plan in advance, so like this person can take an extra spread this deadline. But that's a last resort. You really want the person who you assign the spread to be the one that completes it. I wrote kick them out, which was mostly a joke, but if it's the first 1 or 2 weeks of school, it is possible to get them switched out of the class. This is only for something really extreme. But at my school, yearbook is something that you interview for and fill out a whole application for. And so normally that application process will root out students who maybe they don't have high grades, and so then they can't focus on yearbook because of their other classes. And so our school had rules where you had to have like a certain GPA to be in the class. But if they're having like behavior problems, because I don't know what age your school yearbook would be, but it is possible to have them switch to a different class in the very beginning. This is not something you do halfway through the year. And then Also address the problem to everyone. So by this, you don't want to single out any student in front of the class, but if you're having a problem with multiple students not doing their work, it should be something you address to everyone. So there are times where I've had to go to the front of the class and wait for everyone to get quiet and then tell them, like, I need you to get your work done. You have to show them why it's important, not just to you, but to the school. These yearbooks, like the schools are spending thousands of dollars on, and so if you don't meet the deadline, the administration will be after you. So it's really important that you do your work. For the school, it was important to me as editor-in-chief, and so by going in front of the classroom and giving them a serious talk, it actually it helped a lot of them get back to work. What if the other editors disagree with you? So compromise is really important as an editor. One thing that I had to compromise on was the ladder organization. So our school, most schools will organize chronologically, and so we would go by season. And so we would have a whole section of the book for fall, which is great for like publishing throughout the year. But then I found that at the end of the year, it was difficult to find something that you're looking for. So if you want to find the water polo spread, first you have to know what season they played water polo, which a lot of people do know. But then once you find the season, that's a whole quarter of the book you're looking through to find the water polo spread. And the table of contents or the end sheets would be divided into 4 big sections, because my school's book would be like 420 pages long, which is a lot to be looking through. And so what we ended up doing was we still ordered the book chronologically, but I changed the end sheets so that it was sorted by topic instead of by season. So then I had a sports topic in the end sheets where it would only have the sports. And then by having more different sections in the table of contents, it was easier to find things at the end of the year, and we were still able to order the book chronologically like we wanted to. And so everyone was happy with that. Another thing was, or I'll continue. You can also exercise your power. So if there's something that the editors are disagreeing with you on, but you're still like holding your ground, then maybe it's okay to tell them that they can't have what they want. But you have to have a reason for this. You can't just go like, I don't like that, so no, we're not doing it. You have to listen to them and see maybe they are right and maybe you're wrong. But so here we have this font here called Scrubby, which I hated this font. I'm not a fan of Scrubby. My editors know I hate this font. I don't know. I don't like the curls. And I hate the little holes in the S. I hate this font. But all my editors liked it. And so then they were disagreeing with me and they were like, can we please put Scrubby into the yearbook? And I told them no, and we ended up not putting it in the yearbook because I just hated it so much. But the reason I had was my book was it was very bold and blocky where most of our fonts. So like if you remember the cover, it's not a very curly cutesy font. And so that's how most of our book was. And so this font really didn't fit in with the vibe I was going for the book. But maybe if it was what the book looked like, then I would have given in to the editors, even though I don't personally like the font. So it depends on the reasoning. And I actually I think in the colophon or something, I stuck it in the back for them anyways to make them happy because I knew that I liked the font so much. So yeah, just talk it out. Most of the time you can agree on a compromise where both sides are happy. So here's a list of other problems. When I first joined Yearbook, there was a hierarchy where the editors in charge they would only let the staff do certain things. So when I went to a football game for the first time to take pictures, we weren't allowed to take pictures of the players on the field, which is okay because if you're a new photographer, maybe you're not getting the best photos yet and you don't want a lot of people on the field because it might interfere with the players. So we were assigned to take crowd shots, but in the crowd, there was another editor who wouldn't want us to take pictures of the best part of the crowd where everyone's dressed up and jumping. They said, you have to go to this section where everyone's sitting down and there's nothing to take pictures of. And so it really bothered me that the editors get to take pictures of all of the good stuff and then the staff don't. So like, what was even the point of me being at the football game if the editors are going to do it all? And so even once I became an editor, they still kind of divided up the editors. So it was like the club's editors were not invited to Elite Weekend, only the copy editors. And so there was this whole like hierarchy system where staff can't learn design until they become an editor. That it really didn't work, because then if something happens to one of the editors, then now you have more late nights for the rest of the editors because no one else learned how to do it. So it's important to give everyone equal opportunities and teach them, even if you're a staff, so that way things will be easier later on. Sometimes you have a bad editor. I remember one time I had a copy where the editor changed like the name or something so that it was no longer true. Like she messed up the copy. And when I told her and tried to fix it, she said like, no, don't touch the copy anymore. Once it gets to the editors, we don't want the staff to touch it. So if something like that happens, you can report it to your teacher advisor, because the editors are supposed to work with the staff and not be doing work for them or changing their work, especially if your name is attached to it. You don't want it to be wrong. If you don't have enough time to get your work done, or not enough staff members, you might have to cut down the amount of pages in the book, or cut down like how many photos are on a spread based on how big your staff is. One year we had a smaller staff, but you could also just have each staff member take on more pages. So it's what works best for you. You could take on more, or you could cut some out, or a little bit of both. Conflict remediation. Sometimes there are personal fights between staff members unrelated to yearbook, which can be a problem in yearbook. So I remember there was these two girls who didn't get along, and what we ended up doing was just separating them for the rest of the year. So they would never be assigned on a spread together. They wouldn't sit on the same side of the classroom. And because both of them loved yearbook, then they would get their work done. As long as we didn't put them together, it all worked out. So you do have to get to know your staff and know who works good together and who doesn't in order to get work done better. If it's really bad, you might have to go to your teacher advisor. Yes. Next, I wrote natural disasters. I was thinking of COVID too, actually, Brooke, because that's a disaster for sure. And that affected everyone, but we still made yearbooks in the pandemic. So it is possible. It was definitely different than how yearbook normally was. But there are other things. For one thing, you could cover the disaster in the book. So I know for COVID years, we definitely had lots and lots of spreads talking about the pandemic and masks and all these different things. But even say for like an earthquake, you could have an earthquake spread. And so if something happens that maybe delays you making a spread, you could make a spread out of that. And so there was one time where 4 of our classrooms caught on fire at my school. It was after hours, thankfully, so no one was inside, but they were totally demolished. Like there was nothing left. The pictures were crazy, like on the inside. But because of that, we were able to do a spread on the fire, which was one of my favorite spreads, and it was really cool. They even had like firemen come talk to the school about it, and so we covered that. And so anything like special that happens unexpected during the year, you might think it's a bad thing, but it could be turned into a good thing. If a fire like destroys the yearbook room or something like that, that could be a problem. This is why you back up your stuff. You don't know, what if that classroom was the yearbook room, and now all your photos and computers are gone. So make sure you have backups of everything. If you don't have enough equipment at your school, you could always use your own personal equipment, or if you even have to, like you could put a phone picture into the book if for some reason you don't have any cameras at all and something important happens. We might have had like a phone picture of the inside of the burnt building because no one with cameras was allowed to go in, but somebody had gotten a phone picture, like one of the firemen on Twitter. And so, yeah, just you can always put anything into the book if you connect it to the school. And new advisors. This happened with me a lot because we switched advisors almost every year when I was in high school. And some of them are better than others. And sometimes if they're new, they don't know everything that you know. So my senior year was my 5th year being in yearbook, since I did it in 8th grade too. And it was the teacher's first year in yearbook. And so I definitely had more experience than her, even though her position gave her more power over me. And so we just had to work together to make sure that everything I wanted to get done would get done, and that she would also be learning throughout the year how it would work. If there are problems, you can always go up to them and say, oh, can I talk to you about a few things in private? And then I've had conversations with my advisors about things that I thought should be changed about the way they're running the class. And they're always happy to listen and always happy to help. And so sometimes you just have to let them know, which again goes back to communication. If I don't say anything, nothing is going to change. Yeah, so new advisors, if they're the advisor, it's their job to help you out. So be nice to them and let them help you and help them. Last I wrote faulty tech. There were some days where all of our computers in the yearbook room just wouldn't work. So in that scenario, you call the IT person from your school to come fix them. Maybe someone in your class can come fix them. But anything like, internet not working, you don't have the right equipment, try and get it fixed as soon as you can. Always contact your teacher advisor. And sometimes just take a day off. If the computers aren't working, just take a break, stop stressing over it. And then the next day, you can be refreshed and go back to work after taking a break from when the computers were broken. So instead of wasting a day, maybe spend time with your staff and have fun. So let's say you have a problem and your spread, you can't have the spread you wanted. You can't find any solution. Your teacher advisors can't come up with any solution. You can have an emergency filler. So if you have a blank spread, you could put a signature page where you write signatures at the top and no one will know that it wasn't supposed to be a blank page. We do this on purpose at the end of the book for signatures, but you could stick it in the middle somewhere. You could have an activity page. This is more for middle school yearbooks, but you could put in crosswords or word searches to fill up space. The material of the pages isn't the best for writing on, but people will do it anyways. You could put a photo collage. This one's a great one. You don't even need to put captions. Just throw in all the best photos you have that haven't gotten used in the book, and it gets to feature more work from your photographers and feature more students from the school. So it's a win for everyone if you have a collage. And be creative. You could think of anything to fill in an empty page. Empty pages aren't usually a problem, especially if you plan out your ladder really well in the beginning of the year. But there could be a problem like an event not happening because the building got burnt down. So just be creative. And lastly, what do you do next? So I know all of you have already started school and already started yearbook. But you should have a ladder and a theme and fonts and colors. If you have to, we have changed the theme a little later into the year than we would like. Like during COVID times, we had to redo our whole theme because the year was not going the way that we thought it was. Design templates and a style guide to be reused throughout the year. So templates save your life because instead of having to free design every single spread in the book, you can just reuse the same templates. If you want variety, you can just mirror it and use the same template. But this is for the student life spread that I showed you earlier. That was a template used throughout the book, and we just changed the colors and pictures, and it saved us a lot of time. But that means you have to really make sure you do a good job designing it in the beginning because you're not going to be changing it much later in the year. That's another thing about being consistent. You don't want to change up your templates too much. And then the style guide, I'll show you some examples. This is from my high school, my college newspaper. They have their own style guide. So it's for copy, it's to show you special rules that apply to your school that might not be grammar rules in general. So for them, they have, what do you call the newspaper? This is not a grammar rule that you're going to find on Google. They have their own name that they want to be called. So they don't want to be called Guardian. They want to be called The Guardian. So this could be for your high school. Maybe you have a mascot name that you need to write in here, and how do you capitalize it or do you not capitalize it? That's another thing for staying consistent. You just write everything in your style guide. This style guide is super long, 28 pages. They make you read the whole thing when you join. And then this was the one from Yearbook. It was mostly just for the editors. So for design, we talked about the fonts and the font sizes. And for copy, the word counts. So that way each sport copy is about the same length. So it's just things that you can plan in the beginning so that it's consistent throughout the year and saves you time from having to make it up later. And then lastly, train staff to be reserve editors. So, one second. So this is not a title or position, but something that can save you later in the year. So by teaching your staff in the beginning of the year, I think I talked about this earlier, but let's say something happens to one of your editors. Now they can step in and do the work for them. So you can teach staff how to edit copies, even if that's not something they normally do, and they can help out later. So this saves you from a lot of late nights. Maybe people get sick. I remember even after the pandemic, we had a lot of people out for COVID at a time, especially if your school has like strict quarantining rules. And so it would really help that if you taught anyone in the class earlier in the year, that they can step up and help with that. Especially designing, because copy and photo, most people learn, but design is something that's usually more for people who are more interested in the class or like have been there longer or become editors. So you can just teach people how to design in the beginning of the year, and then later on, if you're doing senior ads and your senior ads editor is like they have so much work, then it's easier if they have a person who can help them. So just teach people as much as you can. And then lastly, execute your plans, go to all the photo events, create a happy team environment, and listen to your staff. Some fun activities that you guys can have. You can design name tags. We would play music during our work nights, and it used to be the editors only choose the music during our hierarchy era. But now we have like a shared playlist, and everyone submits songs that they want to listen to. So that was a lot of fun. And then we have post-deadline potlucks, Secret Santa, musical chairs. We have a tradition where we all get married to show our commitment to each other. Secret Santa is a little dangerous because if someone gets left out, then that really sucks. So when I was editor-in-chief, I texted everyone the day before, do you have a gift? Do you have a gift? And then I brought like a backup gift. So if someone doesn't have a gift, then you pretend that was their gift all along. So I recommend doing that if you do Secret Santa. Nowadays, they have apps that'll assign you the people, which makes everything perfect. Our first year, we did the whole pull a name out of a hat, and then everyone got a gift except for one girl. And it wasn't even that they forgot to give her a gift. It's just someone didn't choose her name out of the hat or something. I don't know how that even happens. But yeah, that was sad. So be careful if you do something like that where everyone gets something. Something like a post-deadline potluck. You could also only have potlucks if you meet the deadline to incentivize people to meet their deadlines. Yeah.
Alex, can you talk about the wedding tradition? Because I feel
Yes. I'm curious if other schools do that or not. It's a little weird.
You guys your sophomore year.
What?
Something. I remember being at one of your wedding traditions.
Oh yeah. So the wedding is basically a party. We have it towards the beginning of the year. And it's where we show commitment for the whole year, and we have like no divorces as a rule. But it's basically a party. We like tie string to each of our fingers to like connect. So I have no idea where this came from, but I'm not gonna end our year-long tradition. So you tie string to everyone, and then at the end, oh my gosh, I can't even remember what happens. But we all like drink cider and celebrate. And we have vows. You write the vows on the paper of like things that you're gonna do for the year. Yeah, it actually does make people feel more attached to your book, I think, because maybe they wrote down their vows or something. I'm not exactly sure, but it's cool to have like our own little tradition that we do every year.
I saw another school that did that recently, over in the Midwest. One of the other reps had posted about it, and they all got like the 25-cent like quarter machine ring. So they probably just bought a bunch from like Oriental Trading, and like these people have all these like super like giant, massive, ugly rings.
Yeah, I think
they're wearing in exchange. Like the advisor gives them the ring to put on after they say the vow and everything. So yeah, it's a thing. A lot of schools do it. My school does it with like toilet paper too. They like dress up and like put toilet paper as like their wedding clothes, and yeah, it's a thing.
Yeah, it was really funny. We would surprise like the editors are the ones who hosted it, and we would surprise everyone when they walk into the class. And then you reminded me when you said rings. We had ring pops for our rings. So in case you zoned out for the whole hour that I've been talking, each position has its own set of important responsibilities. All of them are necessary. Always communicate with others. Communication is so important. Be consistent throughout the year and organized. And if you're having a problem and you really don't know what to do, talk to your editor-in-chief or your teacher advisor. Both of them should be able to help you. If you are the editor-in-chief or teacher advisor, you could also talk to your Walsworth representative. This isn't just for like people problems. It could also be for like tech problems or anything. I know I texted Monica and Carlos all the time asking for help with things or in the middle of the night, and they would always answer. So they were really helpful. Yeah, and have fun. I miss yearbooks so much. There's no yearbook at UC San Diego, and so it's nice that I get to be doing this and think about all my yearbook stuff again. Yeah.
Awesome. Well,
So
go for
So
it.
yeah, well, that's all I have prepared. So in case I forgot anything or there's anything you want me to go into more detail about, let me know.
No, awesome. That was great, Alex. I know we still have Chloe and Raylene. Is there any questions you guys have for Alex? Put it in the chat or
I'm good, thank you.
welcome, Chloe. By the way, Chloe, I don't know if you saw my message. You are in a rare situation. I text Trekker. You guys have until October for us to rethink your theme and cover. So we do have more time than 9 days. So keep that in mind.
Thank you.
Yeah, it'll be okay. We'll get through it. So awesome. Well, Chloe and Raylene, thank you again for joining us. And Alex, thank you for doing this for us and being here and sharing your yearbook knowledge.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, thank you. It was nice, but we neither Carlos and I really had to talk too much. I was like ready to like busting all my like pull it back from when I was an editor in high school, and so that was nice to have a refreshing take from someone recently out of it, and someone to like you did a massive book, and so you had to deal with a whole bunch of different things that like some of my schools they can't even imagine having a yearbook your size. So it is doable and it's possible, and you you rock. Good job.
It was your yearbook because I know we increased pages. I felt like every year. How big was the end of your senior year, Alex? How big was the book after
The
all?
book was 416 pages. Our student population was about 3,500, and we sold 1,500 copies, or how many we ordered. I think we actually didn't we have to order more later on, and then people had to pick
That
them
was
up
the
in
year
the
you
summer.
did the reprint, and I
Yeah.
was in the plant working on your reprint when I went on. So,
Yeah.
Your high school was bigger than my college.
Yeah, that's the same with my dad. He's always telling me that. Yeah.
That is wild.
It is. It's crazy. Yeah.
awesome. Well,